Hi, this is Jen Rubin, editor-in-chief of The Contrarian. I am delighted to have Terri McCullough, who may not be a household name, but she should be. She is the longtime chief of staff for Nancy Pelosi and really has been with the Speaker Emerita since the 1990s. And she is departing her current role, as is the Speaker Emerita. Welcome, Terri. It's so great to have you.
Thank you, Jen. I'm thrilled to be here.
Well, I'm sure it is a sea change for you as well as for Nancy Pelosi. You were the first chief of staff of a speaker to be a woman. What did you learn from your boss in carrying out that role as a first in a role that had enormous visibility and really responsibility as well?
Well, thanks, Jen. I also have to say, my role as staff is so deeply ingrained in me that it even feels uncomfortable to be talking to you when we are so used to being the staff who are behind the scenes, behind the principals, and behind the members. But glad to be able to talk about Speaker Pelosi because she is extraordinary in so many ways. And one of those is that her she has this extraordinary ability to wield power for purpose, not for her own self, but constantly focused on the American people, American families, the 1 in 5 children that go to bed every night hungry in the US. Um, every day she was motivated by determining a better way to help the American people. And she set a standard for herself, a standard of excellence that we all followed. And it was a constant reminder every day that it was not about any of us. The work in the House was importantly for the people.
Absolutely. What was the secret to her phenomenal career and success? People say, oh, she's the greatest modern speaker or the greatest politician of the era. I think she's, frankly, the most successful speaker in history, given her accomplishments and at times the very, very narrow majorities that she held. What were the qualities that made her so successful?
I could talk about her skills and talents for hours, but a few of those that I have observed and I have truly learned from are that she likes people. She likes building relationships. She gets to know you and she'll remember things about you. And every conversation is a continuation of that relationship. It's not transactional, it is authentic and it is meaningful. And she also understands that there is a point at which a decision has to be made. It could be the wrong decision, it could be the right decision, but timing is everything. And a leader needs to act. You need to move forward with all of the information you have at the moment and act based also on constant feedback and information from those around you, and to see how she constantly spoke with her caucus, receiving that kind of information, both where they were in their districts and what was happening for them related to issues. And she also has just an astounding memory and a skill for knowing what every member's district is like. She has this amazing political mind, but she also has a deeply strong policy background and is a legislator at heart. So you've seen speakers in the past who might have had one or two of those skills, but she came up through the Congress, both having those talents and then acquiring some of the others. So in many ways was the most prepared speaker one could ever see.
I sometimes think, having read so much about her upbringing, her father, her time in Baltimore, how much she gained from watching her father, really her parents, as they talked to constituents, as they got to know them, as they wielded power. How much of who she is a child of Baltimore and a child of her parents?
Well, I think certainly she learned at the feet of her parents, both of whom were extremely talented in terms of their public service, and extremely devoted to their public service, and extremely devoted to their Catholicism and their faith, which for her is a deep part of the reason she does a lot of this work. Um, it's interesting because certainly she learned and learned, but she was never the one who was expected to go into public service. It was never even a thought. So while that may have come to her perhaps to tuck away for use at another time, it was never her role to learn to then serve or to follow her father's footsteps. Nobody expected that of her. So she listened, she observed, she took those lessons in, and then she found that she was going to and wanted to use them, which I think was a great surprise for her and everyone in the family.
The other thing that continually strikes me about her is that she has a level of patriotism and devotion to America that is very representative of American immigrants, both in their underlying faith in the institutions, the idea of America, but also simply in the sustainability of various institutions. She is and always has been very close to immigrant communities and herself as a child of an immigrant family. How much does that figure into her perspective and her love and understanding of America?
That's a great question. I mean, certainly that factors into a degree, but I do think, again, both as an immigrant, both as a person of faith, she is somebody who sees and wants an America that has equal opportunity for all, which is why it's so devastating at this moment when we worked so hard for so many years to find a path to citizenship, to ensure that people could come to this country and thrive, and their families could thrive. That we are in this horrible moment for immigrants now, this shameful moment. But I do think that it is absolutely the belief that everybody deserves the equal opportunity to succeed and thrive in this country. That is, um, these institutions were created um, for the people, by the people, for the people, right? So she is a deep believer in these institutions, in the House as an institution, and it has been a guiding force for her to ensure that we find a way to support a path to citizenship for as many immigrants as we can.
I was also struck in her thank you goodbye video that she made. That was such a love letter to San Francisco. We all think of her as a national figure, but she is very much a daughter, if you will, of San Francisco as well, and entered politics on the strength of many issues that were very important to San Francisco, the AIDS issue, LGBTQ issues. How much has her experience living, being in San Francisco, which is such a polyglot, such a dynamic city, kind of shaped her view of America, both in sort of the optimism and also the idea of America's ability to get along with one another?
It is, again, she as you mentioned the video, she thinks of our city of San Francisco, the city of St. Francis, make me a channel of your peace. It comes back to the faith piece, but it also comes back to the recognition that we are we are best when we are a diverse community working together. I remember so strongly when I first started working for her in the early 90s in San Francisco, how so many of us had friends who were dying of AIDS at the time. There was so little hope. And it was just absolutely clear to her this needs to be the fight that I focus on. This is what I need to do for my constituents, for my friends, for the country. We cannot let this devastation continue. no matter how difficult it's going to be. And certainly it was difficult both to get people's attention and collaboration as we move forward to pass things like the Ryan White Care Act years later. But it is a constant source of pride and energy to her that the district in San Francisco is so beautifully diverse, filled with immigrants, filled with people of all different, filled with so many different people who have different experiences to bring to the table.
She, I think, will primarily maybe first be known, if you get one sentence in history, that she brought affordable health care to the American people. And now, as we sit here in December with the Republicans ready to really tear down part of the infrastructure of that, which is the affordability, how does she feel about, first of all, that as kind of a capstone accomplishment? And secondly, what is to become of it under the current Republican regime?
Well, she certainly, as you said, considers this perhaps the greatest achievement of her career in leadership. As you know, Jen, it was very difficult to get there. We had a much different makeup of a Congress at the time with different considerations, but it is as somebody who worked on it in part during that time, it's very sad to me that people do not understand what progress right now, that do not understand what progress we made there compared to what had been before. In fact, you almost, people do not always need to look to the past to be grateful, but also just to see what is possible and
Yes.
what change can be made. So it was at that moment quite revolutionary in many ways. She certainly saw it her mission to stay in the Congress and fight against the attempts to repeal during the first Trump administration and before, because it has been so critical to so many people. And we are still here. We are still here in that fight, and that fight is still critical. The consequences of the inability to access and pay for health care for so many Americans are just horrific to consider. It's challenging enough now. So this is the fight that will continue because it continues to be so critical.
I sometimes think what must be going through her head as she watches the last couple of Republican speakers. I'm reminded of the great Yogi Berra line. Can anybody play baseball here? Um, what obviously two of the most incompetent, the weakest speakers have been Speaker McCarthy and now Speaker Johnson. Um, does she attribute that kind of trend, the degradation of the Republican Party and the ability to govern, to any particular factor? Is that tied to the Trump phenomenon in her mind? Is there a larger problem in our politics or in Republican politics that gives us such feckless characters in such an important role?
Well, it's certainly tied to Trump because the Republicans are have made a deal to do his bidding and thereby completely diminish the power of the House. But she, again, deeply believes in the House as an institution. And I do think a number of the Republicans who have come into the House over the past several years have no respect or regard for the institution. They want to blow the institution up. So, how could they possibly be effective when they are fighting against the idea of what they're doing in the first place?
There is kind of a push-pull that many of us have gone through over the Trump years, which is on one hand, we look at Trump and we say, how could people possibly have voted for him? And on the other, we see that public opposition to what he's actually doing is very, very high. In other words, that maybe people didn't fully accept, understand, embrace what he symbolized, what he decided to run on. She's very uh, fond of quoting Lincoln's comment on public sentiment. How does she feel about public sentiment now? Does she think public sentiment is still reachable, malleable, can be invoked for the causes that she cares about, for democracy?
Uh, yes, public part of the Lincoln quote is public sentiment is everything. I think that one of the real challenges we saw is that Trump said he would lower prices and create um, a structure around affordability. Although the other day he said affordability apparently is a con job, so he's deciding from one day to the next, and people chose to believe him. And now they are seeing that that is not happening. And we're seeing his numbers plummet. So I'm hopeful that public sentiment will be effective in that regard. But yes, it's critically important. I think we need to help people understand every day what it is that he is taking away from them. And I think some days we do a great job of that, some days we don't, but I think every day we have to try to do that.
Absolutely. When I look at this past election 2025 and the ones in the recent past, I see so many female House members that she helped nurture, she helped promote. Abigail Spamberger, Elise Slotkin, Mikey Sherrill, who have now risen up the ranks. What's her view of that? Does she take pride in that? Does she see that as part of her legacy?
Oh, absolutely. I think that she thinks it's thrilling, and it is most certainly part of her legacy. Um, when she first entered Congress, I think that there were maybe 11 Democratic women,
Yeah.
um, and she, frankly, ever since then, has worked um, in her night job fundraising and then as a speaker and leader to ensure that we had more women not only elected to the House, but more women ensconced in the seats of power. One of the things that she did in her first speakership that I thought was so meaningful was to ensure where there were members she could appoint to committees. We had, the first woman chair of the House Administration Committee, the first woman chair of the Small Business Committee, creating that opportunity for them not only to have a seat at the table, but to lead so that that becomes a much more, not that anything is ever normal, but a much more relevant occurrence. So you have women then constantly moving through the House, realizing, okay, yeah, I can be chair, I can be speaker, I can be all of these things, and then I have a whole network of women members to aid me in that effort.
She also took great pride throughout her career that she had served on two very important committees. One was appropriations, and the other was intelligence. And it seemed that both of those very much shaped her speakership. The intelligence in that she was able to kind of tell when presidents were leveling with us when they were not. Her interest in continually representing America at the Munich Security Council, her engagement in China and in human rights for China. And on the other side, her devotion to let the appropriators appropriate. They will figure it out. Um, was that kind of calculated in any sense that she wanted to build those areas of expertise, or was she simply kind of fortunate to wind up there and then was able to draw on those later?
Well, I think she had a great desire to be on the Appropriations Committee because you of course, when you first enter the Congress, want to be on one of the one of the major committees, and from her perspective, representing San Francisco in California, it was very important for her to be
Sure.
able to bring some of that money back home. She also had a deep interest in so many issues, again, particularly HIV/AIDS, as we thought about how we directed so much money in the early and mid 90s. We're able to do that. That was a critical part of her work and a great part of her legacy. I will just, I know you know this, but remind folks that her passion for the fight for human rights, particularly in China, began very early in her career as a very junior member. And that is something that has been sustained deeply every day over the last 38 years that she has been in Congress. She was the first woman ranking member on the Intelligence Committee. It was something that it was very important to her, and going back to the women also, she finds it very important and tells women members that they should have some sort of national security credential because it is critical to be in the middle of those conversations um, at whatever crisis time for the country and the Congress.
There are many moments, particularly in her tenure as Speaker during the first Trump administration, where she certainly had a flair for the dramatic. And we have those images of her tearing up the lies in the State of the Union. We have the image of her leaving the White House, putting on her glasses. Was she conscious of creating these really kind of viral moments, or when you ask her about them, she sometimes says, well, that was my only clean coat, or she kind of brushes them off. I find that hard to believe. Does she think about these things?
She did tell us after she ripped the speech, she said, I knew you all would be upset at me. I'm not sure that we were. So I think she has a very defined, again, going back to her faith, going back to her values as a child of public servants, and the representative from San Francisco. She has a very grounded moral center. So when she encounters somebody who is lying, who is concerned more with the welfare of billionaires than those the least of our brothers. She is she has uh, a need to confront that directly because that's the right thing to do. And that, I think, is what separates her from so many people. She has the courage to do the right thing often when other people let some of those things slip by.
Absolutely. So, last question for you. Faith has been such a critical part of her life, her career, her personal development. I know the meetings that she's had with popes, and also maybe some of her more confrontational relationships, for example, with the U.S. bishops. They may not have liked the Affordable Care Act, as she likes to say, but the nuns were with her, and that's what counted.
We were, yes.
Um, so, as you kind of look back on her career, talk to us a little bit about how faith played a role in not only her personality and her interests, but the way she approached her job, the way she made decisions, the way she weighed considerations.
Oh, it is an absolutely core part of her. And um, as as someone else who was raised Catholic, I identify that with that so much because to me, um, it is what I took away from it was your purpose is to serve others, and that at its core is really critical to her. But yet she is, as you said, she's not afraid to confront when she sees right versus wrong. I remember so distinctly, we were in a meeting during the Affordable Care Act, the conference of U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops, and uh, and us and the speaker and Rosa DeLauro and a couple of us staff. So you had 8 men in the room and 4 women talking about women's reproductive health, and it was just such a stark reminder about who has power and who makes decisions and how important it is to be somebody in the room who understands how those decisions are going to affect other people.
Well, an extraordinary career. I'm sure you feel blessed to have spent so many years with her in what must have been a fascinating, fascinating career. Do you have plans for what you intend to do in your next chapter of life?
I do. I think I'm gonna look for the next fight. One of the things she always taught us is never fight every fight like it's your last. And I know there are many ahead, and I would like to participate. Working for her has been the opportunity of a lifetime, and that legacy is very important to me. So, however I can ensure to move that forward, I am always going to be a part of that.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for your service, as she said on the floor, and really a remarkable tribute to you. You have really been with her every step of the way, and I know how important and how beloved you are, not only to her and her staff, but to the caucus, to the members, to the institution. So, congratulations on this chapter of your career and best of luck in what you do next. I can't wait to see what it is.
Thank you so much, Jen. It's such a pleasure to be with you. Thank you.